Nowadays, our planet is facing an environmental and climate crisis, caused mainly by global warming. Global warming is the increase of temperature on Earth caused by the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is a process that warms the surface of the Earth. When the sun radiates energy to the Earth, our atmosphere reflects most of the energy to space. Some of that energy gets absorbed by some gases called greenhouse effect gases, that are mainly carbon dioxide, water vapor, nitrous oxide, methane, and ozone, and they keep our planet warm. Most of these gases are emitted naturally, and the greenhouse effect helps us keep our planet on the right conditions to maintain life. Nevertheless, the emission of these gases has been rising along with the industrial and technological advances. That way, the temperature of Earth increases more and more, threatening the life on our planet. And not only that, but our oceans and air are being contaminated by the wastes produced by humanity, on factories, and in our day-to-day life. This crisis is damaging tremendously all of the life on Earth, and in the worst cases, causing a lot of species to extinct. Just take a look at these images. Devastating, right? We need to do something about it. We need to do something with our wastes, but we still need factories to produce our goods. We need to create energy. We need to transport ourselves, but we cannot keep emitting these gases. We need to clean our atmosphere. But how can we do it? What if I told you that there is a single process that can help us solve these problems? Electrolysis. Okay, so what is electrolysis? Electrolysis is a process in which you separate the elements of a compound by applying an electrical current. Let's do a demonstration. In this case, with water. We will be separating it into hydrogen and oxygen. For this experiment, we will need a power source that will be generating electricity. In this case, I will use a 9-volt battery. We also need some copper cables to conduct our electrical current, and some electrodes for the end of our cables. I will use some stainless steel screws that conduce electricity very well. It is very important that they are stainless, because if they are not, oxygen will react with them. The water we will be using is distilled water, so that we get purer hydrogen and oxygen. Distilled water cannot conduce electricity, so we will also need some electrolytes to add. I will use sodium hydroxide. Finally, we'll need some test tubes to catch the oxygen and hydrogen. Now on to the process. First, we will measure 850 milliliters of distilled water. Then, we will weigh 25 grams of sodium hydroxide. Now, we will combine the distilled water with the sodium hydroxide, and we will proceed to mix with a spoon. Then, we will attach the cables to each of the 2 stainless steel screws. Now, we cover the copper with a hot glue gun. When we are finished, we will attach the threads to each of the 2 test tubes, and we will reinforce them with tape. When we are ready with that, we will build this structure. Be sure to leave no oxygen on the test tubes and have them filled with water. Finally, we will connect each of the ends of the cables to the battery. Now look how the water is separating into hydrogen and oxygen. But how does this happen? Let's go over the parts of the circuit. First, we have our power source connected to the electrodes. The positive one is called anode, and the negative one is called cathode. The anode is going to give or release the electrons of electricity, oxidating, and the cathode is going to take or capture other electrons, reducing. But what happens with the water? To understand this process, we need to understand atoms. Atoms are formed by a nucleus of protons and neutrons, and around them the electrons orbit. Atoms have several orbits, and the last one of these orbits is called valence shell. For example, the valence shell of hydrogen is composed by one electron. It is a very light element. And the valence shell of oxygen is composed of 6 electrons. As most of the things in our universe, these atoms search for balance. And for balance to be achieved, we need 8 electrons in the valence shell. Any atom with more than 4 electrons will try to gain them, and any atom with less than 4 electrons will give its electrons. In this case, hydrogen will give electrons, and oxygen will gain electrons. This way, when the anode releases electrons, the oxygen will capture them, and when the cathode takes electrons, the hydrogen will give them, separating the compost and producing electrolysis, releasing oxygen and hydrogen as independent gases. Now, let's prove that they are actually hydrogen and oxygen. Let's put the lighter into the test tube with negative charge and watch the flame grow higher with the presence of oxygen. Finally, we will put the lighter into the test tube with positive charge and watch the explosion caused with the presence of hydrogen. But how does this help our planet? Well, as I mentioned earlier, electrolysis can help us solve a lot of problems. Its main and most important usage is the creation of the energy of the future, hydrogen. By doing electrolysis of water, we can use hydrogen as a green and 100% sustainable energy source. Hydrogen has a lot of potential as an energy source. The first step is creating energy by any of our sustainable methods, like eolic, solar, etc. Then, we use that energy to electrolyze water and separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. Finally, we store the hydrogen and use it as a fuel. We can use it for hydrogen vehicles, like for example, this new Toyota Mirai, or this train completely powered by hydrogen. But we can also use it as a synthetic fuel for our actual cars. Not only that, but hydrogen can be used as a fertilizer for metal production and refining, food processing, and even cosmetics. We can also use hydrogen instead of the natural gas used in factories and stop with most of the carbon dioxide emissions. Not to mention that we could create our own trees that separate carbon dioxide into oxygen and carbon. This is used, for example, in Mars by the rover Perseverance to create oxygen from the atmosphere of Mars, which is 95.32% carbon dioxide. Another use is to create hypochlorous acid by electrolyzing water with sodium chloride, also known as table salt. Hypochlorous acid works as a disinfectant and is proved to be more effective than sodium hypochlorite, that is the chloride that we use day to day. With this substance, we could disinfect any surface, even sanitary and industrial wastewater. We could even purify our water for it to be safe to drink. Electrolysis has endless uses, and I mentioned just the most important ones. The best thing is that it doesn't produce any greenhouse effect gases, and it's more efficient than the methods we use now to create energy. This is a very big advance for science and ecology, and I'm sure our future is powered by hydrogen. What is left for us is to lean towards the use of sustainable energies and consume all of these products that don't produce greenhouse effect gases. This way, we can almost totally stop the emission of these gases, saving our flora and fauna and the life of our planet. I hope you found this information useful and interesting. Thank you for your attention.